Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was born in Austria in 1889. After serving in World War I, he entered politics in Germany, rising to power by exploiting national humiliation after the Treaty of Versailles. He promised to restore Germany's pride, economy and military. In 1933, he was appointed Chancellor. By 1934, he had declared himself Führer. Hitler established a totalitarian state where no dissent was tolerated. The Nazi Party controlled all aspects of life. He introduced laws based on racial ideology, portraying Jews, Roma people, disabled individuals and other minorities as enemies of the state. His government passed the Nuremberg laws, stripping Jews of citizenship and rights. Propaganda, censorship shaped public opinion. In 1939, Hitler ordered the invasion of Poland, triggering World War II. Nazi forces spread across Europe, bringing occupation, terror and death. But this most notorious crime was the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were rounded up and transported to ghettos, concentration camps and death camps. At places like Auschwitz, Treblinka and Sobibor, gas chambers operated daily. Victims were starved, worked to death and systematically exterminated. Hitler's war ultimately killed over 70 million people worldwide. He committed suicide in 1945 as Allied forces closed in on Berlin. Germany lay in ruins. His legacy remains a symbol of genocidal tyranny. Augusto Pinochet. In 1973, General Augusto Pinochet led a military coup that overthrew Chile's elected socialist president Salvador Allende. Tanks rolled into Santiago. Jets bombed the presidential palace. Pinochet took full control, dissolving the constitution and parliament. Overnight, Chile became a military dictatorship. Pinochet ordered mass arrests. Tens of thousands of people were detained in stadiums and military facilities. Many were tortured using electric shocks, beatings, and psychological abuse. Thousands were executed or disappeared without trial. Families never find out what happened to their loved ones. Pinochet introduced free market economic reforms supported by foreign economists, which opened Chile's economy. While some celebrated the economic turnaround, it came at a human cost that is still debated in Chile today. His regime outlawed political parties and ruled through fear until 1990. He remained head of the military and later faced international efforts to prosecute him for crimes against humanity, though he died in 2006 without ever facing trial. Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini rose from being a journalist and socialist agitator to becoming the founder of fascism. In 1922, he marched on Rome with his black shirt militias and was appointed Prime Minister of Italy. Mussolini quickly dismantled Italy's democratic institutions. Political opponents were beaten, imprisoned or killed. The press was silenced. He declared himself Il Deus or the leader and ruled with absolute authority. Obsessed with reviving the Roman Empire, Mussolini launched military invasions in Africa. His army invaded Ethiopia in 1935 using mustard gas on civilians and executing resistance fighters. Mussolini also supported Franco in the Spanish Civil War, providing weapons and troops to crush the Spanish Republic. In 1939, Mussolini allied with Adolf Hitler. Italy entered World War II on the side of the Axis powers. Italian soldiers fought in brutal campaigns on North Africa, Greece and Russia. As the war turned against him, Mussolini was overthrown, captured by Italian partisans and executed in 1945. His body was hung upside down in a public square. Francisco Franco. Francisco Franco rose to power by leading a military rebellion in Spain in 1936. Backed by Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, Franco's forces carried out bombings of civilian areas, including the infamous attack on Guernica. After winning the Spanish Civil War in 1939, Franco ruled Spain as a dictator for 36 years. He eliminated all political opposition. Tens of thousands of Republicans, Socialists and Communists were executed or imprisoned. Families of the defeated were punished for generations. Franco's Spain was a police state. People lived under constant surveillance. The press was censored. His regime banned regional languages like Catalan and Basque. Franco stayed in power until he died in 1975. Spain transitioned to democracy, but the scars of his dictatorship remain part of the country's national memory. Idi Amin. Idi Amin staged a military coup in Uganda in 1971. His rule was unpredictable, brutal and deadly. Known for his bizarre public statements, he referred to himself as the conqueror of the British Empire. Yet behind the absurdity was a reign of terror. Amin expelled tens of thousands of Asians, mostly Indians and Pakistans, seizing their businesses and properties. This devastated Uganda's economy. His military targeted ethnic groups such as the Akuli and Langi, slaughtering thousands in purges. Bodies were dumped in rivers, entire villages were wiped out. Amin's soldiers carried out mass rapes, beatings and public executions. It is estimated that between 300,000 to 500,000 people were killed during his 8-year rule. In 1978, Amin attempted to invade neighboring Tanzania. Tanzanian forces counterattacked and overthrew his regime in 1979. Amin fled to Saudi Arabia, where he lived in exile until he died in 2003. Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin ruled the Soviet Union with absolute power from the mid-1920s until he died in 1953. He transformed the USSR into a totalitarian state through terror and violence. Stalin's forced collectivization policies aimed to modernize agriculture but caused widespread famine. The Holodomor in Ukraine, a state engineering famine, killed millions. Grain was taken from starving villages to meet government targets. Stalin's Great Purge began in the late 1930s. Millions were arrested, tortured and executed. Political rivals, military officers, intellectuals and ordinary citizens were accused of crimes they didn't commit. Stalin's paranoia turned the Soviet Union into a nation of informants and fear. Despite the human cost, Stalin led the USSR through the World War II, playing a major role in defeating Nazi Germany. After the war, he expanded Soviet control over Eastern Europe, setting the stage for the Cold War. Stalin died in 1953, leaving a legacy of both industrial power and mass suffering. Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung established North Korea in 1948 after Korea was divided following World War II. He created the one-party state centered on his image. Propaganda portrayed him as a godlike figure. In 1950, Kim launched the surprise invasion of South Korea. The Korean War lasted 3 years and killed millions. After the war, Kim sealed North Korea off from the world. He built a system of brutal labor camps for anyone suspected of disloyalty. Whole families, including children, were imprisoned for generations. Food shortages, purges, and executions became part of daily life. Kim died in 1994, leaving behind a state defined by isolation, poverty, and dictatorship. His son and grandson have continued his policies, making North Korea one of the world's most repressive regimes. Leopold II of Belgium. Leopold II personally controlled the Congo Free State from 1885 to 1908. Under the cover of a humanitarian mission, he ran the territory as a giant labor camp. Armed guards forced villagers to meet rubber production quarters. Those who failed had their hands cut off. Children were kidnapped and held hostage. Villages were burned to the ground. Survivors described unimaginable cruelty. International reporters and missionaries exposed the horrors, forcing Belgium to take control of Leopold. By then, an estimated 10 million people had died. Leopold never faced justice and died one of Europe's wealthiest monarchs. Son of a bitch. Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong led China's Communist Party to victory in 1949. His early years were marked by massive land reforms and the suppression of political enemies. In 1958, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward to transform China into an industrial superpower. The policy failed. Poor planning and forced farming methods caused a famine that killed tens of millions. Mao's Cultural Revolution, starting in 1966, unleashed chaos. Students formed Red Guard groups attacking teachers, artists, and even their own families. Ancient temples were destroyed, books were burnt, intellectuals were humiliated, imprisoned, or killed. Mao ruled until he died in 1976. His policies reshaped China but left a legacy of mass suffering. Pol Pot. Pol Pot led the Khmer Rouge to power in Cambodia in 1975. His radical vision aimed to create a society without money, cities, or intellectuals. He forced millions from cities into the countryside to work as farmers. Anyone who wore glasses, spoke a foreign language, or appeared educated was executed. Religion, family ties, and education were banned. Known as the Killing Fields, mass graves filled the countryside. Around 2 million people, 1/4 of Cambodia's population, died in less than 4 years. Pol Pot fled when Vietnam invaded in 1979. He died in 1998, never facing trial. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein ruled Iraq with absolute power. He rose through the ranks of the Ba'ath Party, eventually seizing the presidency in 1979. Saddam crushed all opposition through torture and execution. His regime targeted Kurds with chemical weapons, including the 1988 Halabja massacre, killing thousands. He invaded Iran in 1980, starting a war that lasted 8 years and killed hundreds of thousands. In 1990, he invaded Kuwait, leading to the Gulf War. Sanctions crippled Iraq's economy, but Saddam remained in power until 2003 when US-led forces toppled his regime. He was captured, tried, and executed in 2006. Vlad the Impaler. Vlad I of Wallachia ruled in the mid-1400s. Known as Vlad the Impaler, his methods of punishing enemies were legendary for their cruelty. Vlad used impalement to strike fear into his enemies, both foreign and domestic. Ottoman soldiers, rival nobles, and common criminals were all subjected to slow, gruesome deaths on wooden stakes. Vlad's reputation spread across Europe. Some saw him as a defender of Christianity against the Ottoman Empire. Others saw him as a bloodthirsty tyrant. His brutal legend later inspired the fictional character Count Dracula. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it interesting or learned something new, make sure to leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thanks again, and see you next time.